How well do you know your mouse sensitivity? If I were to scramble your mouse DPI to some random number and told you to play a session of your favorite shooter with the goal of finding that sensitivity again, could you do it? Your DPI has been scrambled. That 5 in-game now feels totally different. That previous 5 might now be equivalent to 7.58 or 2.33, who knows? And what if you got it wrong and totally missed the mark on that equivalent sensitivity? Were your old settings wrong, or are your new settings simply better? And what if you did this exercise several times and kept getting different answers? What would that mean? This isn't just a hypothetical, by the way, it's a real test you can run, and it's something I've tried many times over the years, both directly and indirectly. The first way with scrambling DPI is easiest on mice that allow you to program steps and add steps, so you can add a whole bunch and just mash your DPI button to scramble it, play, find a good sense, then check what DPI you're actually on and do the math to see what your new centimeters per 360 is compared to the old. Another is to use a random number generator to copy an in-game sense. I personally would hit generate, then blur my own vision while copying it so I didn't know the new number. I'm sure there's a better way, but it works. And the final indirect, lazy way that I've done is to simply not bother with converting sensitivities between games and find what feels best by playing. Then afterwards, look up my centimeters per 360 to compare to my sense on similar games. These tests aren't some perfect way to find your optimal sensitivity, though I do think it can be a great way to test the integrity of your choice. If you really think you've found a sensitivity that clicks for you and performs above all the rest, you should be able to find it again, right? Or at least know when you aren't playing on it. I'm at a point now where I'm so far through my aim journey that I know what I want from my aim and how I want it to feel. Whenever I test my sensitivity like this, the results are very consistent. So long as the field of view and gameplay is similar between games, chances are my new sense on a new game will line up very closely with my established settings. A few days ago, I downloaded the finals, which I haven't played since its launch, and further, I haven't played FPS games lately beyond testing Polyglot because I spent so much time recently working on it. Despite all that, with a new mouse being the Pathfinder and a different DPI to my G303, for no particular reason, by the way, I'm on 800 now and was on 1200 before. By the end of my first match, I had settled on 30 or 31 in-game feeling best. And if I were to directly convert from Apex to the finals, I'm playing both on the same FOV2, it'd be 31. While it's all well and good that these little tests work well for me now and I can pat myself on the back, this was not always the case. Earlier on, I had some spectacular failures, times where I was winding up with wildly different results or even impossible results, which I'll get to in a sec. And I think the main difference is with how you judge mouse sensitivity. Early on, I was fixated on the performance of each setting I'd try. If I had a good life, landed some good headshots, etc., I'd subconsciously extrapolate that to all time. If I did so great this life or even this session, that's how well this sense can perform every time. And that couldn't be further from the truth. There have been countless soul-searching mouse sensitivity sessions where by the end I think I've figured it out. I'm landing all my shots and everything's amazing, and I even go to bed thinking, wow, I've done it, I found my sense, it's over. Only to jump on the next day and miss every shot, and quite literally have aim that feels uncontrollable. And that's a hard thing to reconcile. Yesterday it felt perfect. Today it feels unplayable. Like, am I going crazy? What's going on? And as for the impossible results, this is an embarrassing story to tell. When I first started getting into aiming, which was early on in Overwatch, I tried a random sense test for a couple of hours against bots while playing Cassidy. Importantly, I did not hide the settings at this point, so I knew what I was playing on. I would randomize a sense, paste it in, then play for 10 minutes and note down my headshots, eliminations, and note how it felt. The fascinating thing is that I had built this really detailed map where low numbers had comments all about it feeling too slow or sluggish, and higher numbers being too fast and hard to control. The next day, I went to try the same test again to see if my results would change. When I clicked on Cassidy and saw that it had a different sensitivity entered. I had been changing my overall sensitivity, not the hero specific one, so that entire test was purely placebo. The entire time I was playing on the exact same mouse sensitivity, yet I was able to convince myself I was experiencing wildly different results. My only excuse is that I was very new to aiming, and I would like to think it's the sort of mistake I couldn't possibly repeat now, but who knows. Placebo and bias are ridiculously powerful, which was a very valuable lesson to learn so early on. And I think this is a very common pitfall people fall into when experimenting with their sensitivity. You build up this bias towards certain values that makes it extremely difficult to give different settings a fair go. This is a big reason as to why I occasionally change my DPI, so I can shed that bias and approach my in-game settings from a mostly fresh slate. Ultimately, the problem here is looking at performance over potential. I was prioritizing sensitivities that gave me great short-term results, even if they felt too fast or too slow. I didn't really care about the drawbacks so long as I was landing shots at the time. What I should have been looking for was a sensitivity that felt instinctive, even if I didn't land the best shots at the time. I know instinctive is a strange word to use, but I really do think it's the perfect way to describe it. You shouldn't feel like your sensitivity is too fast, too slow, that you're fighting it, having to think too much about it. Missing shots should be your fault, not your sensitivity's fault. And there is one glaring issue with this instinctive premise so far, and that's the frustrating fact that we don't know what we don't know, and that we can get accustomed to just about anything. If a 3200 DPI player who plays on default in-game sense in games, which is a common occurrence by the way, were to take this advice, are they suddenly going to swap from 5cm to 40cm per 360? No, absolutely not. That would feel ridiculously slow to them. So they may very well be using an instinctive feeling sensitivity, but is it optimal? Absolutely not. I've covered this recently in my green screen mousepad video, and my overall opinion is that the optimal sensitivity is 40, plus or minus 5cm per 360, so 35 to 45cm. That's a baseline. It can shift depending on field of view, first or third person perspective, and the aiming demands of the game, but it will never be 5cm. The first step to knowing if your mouse sensitivity is optimal is to play on a competitive setting in the first place. Pro players don't overwhelmingly play in this range by accident. They do so because it provides a tangible advantage, and this is a difficult hurdle to overcome for people that are new to aiming in particular. I know when I first dropped to 25cm in Overwatch from whatever my really fast default was, it felt like I was aiming through mud. But before long, it felt normal, and suddenly I was trying 35, 45, 55, and so on, and even getting into the trap of playing on super low sensitivity. Your perceptions of what feels normal or comfortable can change, and like I said, you don't know what you don't know. Nowadays, I want to play on a sense that allows me to use my fingers, wrist, and arm to all contribute to my aiming action. If my sense is too high, the wrist and arm take a back seat, and if it's too low, my fingers can't properly contribute and my arm is doing too much of the work. But back when I first dropped to 25cm, I didn't know any of that. So making informed decisions about my settings was really difficult. I think as well, when you're earlier into aiming, it's alluring to look at players who are outliers and consider yourself an outlier too, and play on weird setups or extreme settings that you feel give you a unique, distinct advantage over others. When in reality, the numbers don't lie. The vast majority of top level players use similar settings because it works best, and the overwhelming chance is that it'll work best for you too. To circle back to the beginning, to know that you're playing on your optimal sensitivity, I think it's important that you can find it again. It shouldn't be a mysterious, magical number that just happens to work really well, and if you forgot it, you'd be screwed. That number simply represents how your aim should feel. If you play a similar game, change your DPI or your field of view, you should strive to be able to find settings that give you that same feeling. And if you don't or can't, that might just be a handy wake-up call telling you to take a deeper look into how you want your aim to feel. Not just in one session either, but a consistent feeling aim that performs well every day. Now you will always have good and bad aim days. The idea is to simply reduce the magnitude of that variance. You shouldn't end one day feeling like an aim god and start the next feeling like a complete beginner. And having instinctive feeling, optimized mouse sensitivity is a great way to avoid that. If your mouse grip feels like the weak link in your aiming chain, please consider checking out the ClawMates mouse mods I designed over at truthgaminggear.com. I love these things and I've been using them daily since the first prototypes. The only time I take them off is to test new mice fairly and to experiment with new setups. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.